Start it. Oh god. This is gonna be one.
Hi, I'm Josh from Tiberius. I like riffing on everybody's videos that are better than mine.
Welcome back to Spider-Man Month, where I take a look at all of the LJN published Game Boy entries in the franchise. If you haven't watched Part 1 on The Amazing Spider-Man, I'd recommend checking that out before continuing with this review. For those who have seen Part 1, you'll know that The Amazing Spider-Man, one of the very first video games featured.
It's really not.
Froze. It's totally frozen.
This is an outtake.
Probably wasn't worth watching anyway.
Next.
I'm not.
What the fuck? Good work, Microsoft. Jesus of Nazareth.
Xbox One, jump in with no water in the pool.
Xbox, show Matts Ezero.
Here we go. All right, let's do this again.
Take two.
Okay, here we go.
Xbox, defend LJN.
I think what happened there is the Xbox became self-aware.
Welcome back to Spider-Man Month.
Thank you.
Take a look at all of the LJN published Game Boy entries in the franchise. If you haven't watched Part 1 on The Amazing Spider-Man, I'd recommend checking that out before continuing.
Fuck you, Xbox One.
It's doing its own. It's the same exact spot.
It's got to be like the uploader or something.
We got farther than this.
Alright, let's fast forward this shit.
The story this time around doesn't involve Mary Jane, but Peter himself, who appears much older than the late teenager, early 20-something of the comics.
That's just.
I don't want to play a game where the guy's head is throbbing.
Framed for crimes that he didn't commit. He quickly runs.
Whoa! I'm feeling a little frisky. It looks like.
Oh, that spider sense be tingling.
This sequel may have been released 2 years later, but
Look at the way he's walking. Who walks like that? He looks like Mr. Peanut.
The characters are, of course, still easily identifiable, but they're much shorter and
Identifiable.
Oh, he even moves his
It's almost
hands.
as if they've been chibi-fied, but without the additional cuteness of a chibi makeover.
I keep you this cheapy dad.
It's obvious within moments of starting a playthrough that 2 is a whole other beast from the first installment. The first level starts with Parker inside a building, but upon exiting, he's confronted by the Hobgoblin on his trademark glider. It's not readily apparent in the captured footage.
Here's my Game Boy that I just keep having to show y'all.
It's the Amazing Technicolor Spider-Man.
But it took me a while to figure out what to do with Hobgoblin. At first, he seems impervious to every
What you do with your
attack,
Hobgoblin is your own business.
That is until you use your webbing to bring his glider down to the ground. At that point,
I'm surprised he didn't go ground!
Webhead's Fist of Fury.
Release the Fury! You release the Fury!
Did the review just fart?
What happened?
The follow-up is more like a puzzle.
Thumbprints, bad
The
form.
correct actions aren't performed
We
in the
got your
right order.
fingerprints now, LJN.
Taking down the Hobgoblin will produce a key. The key is used to gain admittance to a building that contains the gas can. The gas can is used.
It's what you used to huff to make this video.
Wow, when did you ever see him ride one of those?
It's playing Quidditch.
There are a number of other objects like the card key that gains admittance to the lab where the antidote is, itself used to turn the lizard back into Kirk Connors, but there's far too many items to go in detail about in the allotted time span of this mini-review. All I'll say is that it's easy to get lost in Spider-Man 2, and I can attest to that from personal
I just get lost in his big white eyes.
I ended up going into the sewer before entering the lab to get the antidote. In the process, I ended up wandering around aimlessly, eventually running into the lizard. Problem is,
Surprise, it's not rape anymore.
what did he say? He turned back into Professor Connors without the antidote.
Well, you see the lizard go after him?
No, I was talking about the way he floated down the stairs.
Ultimately futile waste of time. Going against my better judgment, I
Tis
mad.
Shit, you think he's got enough stuff in his
Yeah,
task
come
over
on,
there?
man. You clean up a little than that.
Pat
Let's
Sajak.
take a step back and refer to the more basic elements, starting with the controls.
You use the D-pad and the two
Improved
buttons.
upon for the first one, with one exception. Unlike the tricky double jump in the original, the second...
We're like totally making a show right now for YouTube. It's pretty cool. We're watching LJN defend.
Especially since the Marvel mascot has to jump to greater heights than in the previous installment. The webbing mechanic, on the other hand, remains largely intact from the original. The supply is still limited, so use it.
Hey, why'd the screen go dark?
Rely on the fist to dish out a hot fist of pain on the baddies. My only issue in regards to the jumping and attacking is with the button configuration itself.
It's called double A's.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Dictates that A is used for jumping and B attacks. Spider-Man 2 must not have passed the bar exam.
Oh, that's just
this platformer.
fail.
Does this cripple the controls?
No!
Of course it doesn't, but it is an annoyance, one that takes a little while to get
That
used to.
kick's a little too happy.
I'm so happy you like it, dear.
So the graphics are a step down, the controls are an improvement, and the action is like apples and oranges in comparison to the first. How does the music fare this time around? Sadly, since this wasn't developed by Rare, there's no David Wise. In his absence, David Whitaker takes the helm.
This was a
Whitaker largely
David.
composed for older PCs like the Commodore and Amiga, but he has his share
Slow
of
down, I can't read
and
this shit.
some quite exquisite ones at that. Specifically,
Saw Back to the
later
Future, I'm
LJN
done.
Defender topic, Return of the Sinister Six. His work in this particular entry is very lacking in comparison.
Ooh, he's calling you out, David.
I sure am! It's decent for what it is, but there's just not enough of it. In the nearly 2 hours that I spent with it,
What's going
I heard
on?
3 songs. Total. And 2 of them are only heard on the title screen and during cutscenes.
Spider-Man!
In other words, you better get used to that main level theme, as you'll be hearing it
No, I won't. I'll be turning the volume down.
over and over and over again. During my time with
No, because we're not going to
took
review
down
it.
Hobgoblin, the Lizard, Gravitron, and got the Carnage. This is all
That is not
every
Carnage.
boss there is.
I don't know what that is. but that
Carnage is
not-
depicted about as well as he could in this art style.
Oh,
and he's
disagree,
impossible.
Mr. J.
Literally. According to this FAQ, you can't beat him, so don't even try. Defeating Gravitron restores
What?
power to the amusement park, and Parker has to use the rides to get past Carnage to progress to another part of the map. This is very tricky to do, and there are a ton of obstacles
Ride
that
the
he needs to
birdcage.
compete. So getting past the Crimson Symbiote with limited lives and no continues is quite a challenge, much like this far less amazing sequel overall.
Hey, you gotta admit that Game Over tune's
Fair to
alright.
compare Spider-Man 2 to his predecessor since they're very different experiences. But in my opinion, Bits fumbled the franchise ball and produced a far
Where
less
do you find
satisfying
30-year-old
follow-up
t-shirts
a
to wear
decent
anyway?
side-scrolling platform. It's a case of one step forward in regards to the jumping mechanic and many, many steps backwards in regards to everything else. I respect what they were intending to do with the addition of the puzzle elements, but the finished execution is
Do you
sweet
really?
sauce. Even the music can't help Spider-Man 2, as it's completely average at best. A little variety might have saved it, but as it stands now, it just drones on and on for what feels like an eternity. I won't hold the graphical changes against it, as they're different development companies, but my personal preference is for the Amazing Spider-Man style. Bitch should have just stuck with what worked about it.
Did you just call me a bitch?
Bitch should have just stuck with. Bitch should have. Bitch.
Who you calling a bitch?
Bitch.
Bitch should have just stuck with what worked about amazing and just refined upon it.
Refined upon it.
That's all.
Bitch!
As it stands, Spider-Man 2 is a mediocre game. Would I rather have fill-in-the-blank insult here involving some kind of animal excrement
I
than
love
play it
that
again?
game.
Aren't you
No.
supposed to?
But did I have fun with it?
Yeah.
Not really.
What? You're supposed to
Oh!
defend this!
And I'm sure I'll play it again eventually because I'm me.
Man, it's gonna sit in your sock
But I
drawer.
can't
Don't lie to
really
me.
recommend
Man, it's gonna sit in your sock drawer. Don't lie to me.
Man, it's gonna sit in your sock drawer. Don't lie to me.
and Spider-Man 2.
He's just gonna throw it back there behind the woofer.
Yeah, just like all the other games. Well, that's Spider-Man.
Hero title. Unless you're a hardcore completionist Game Boy or Spider-Man collector, give this a pass.
Oh, sad defender. He really is very sad he can't defend
There it is. The first time on the LJN Defender that I couldn't redeem a game.
Oh, wow.
It had to happen sooner or later.
Wow, no
I know the premise of the series involves me sticking up for the LJN published catalog, but there are some titles that they put out that I just can't really say anything good about. I guess this is one of those examples.
Wah, wah.
Oh wait! Yes I can! There is a positive element in this game. Spidey riding the Goblin Glider.
You feel that in your face, Silent Bob? Wahoo,
No,
noob!
Matt. No.
If that doesn't make you laugh, well, we have two entirely different senses of humor, because that is fucking hilarious.
It looks like Spider-Man's fucking the Enterprise.
I made a funny.
Next up, Spider-Man 3, of course, otherwise known as Invasion of the Spider Slayers. Will it fare better than the inferior bitch-developed entry? Spoilers. Spider Slayers was also developed by bitch.
The Titanic sank.
For the definitive answer, check into Spider-Man Month Part 3 next Friday.
You better.
Gantz might have bested him this time, but the Defender is not defeated. The Spider Slayers are going down next week.
My preference is for the Amazing Spider-Man style. Bitch should have just stuck with what worked about Amazing and just refined upon it.
Well, with a developer name like Bitch, you can't really go far.
He was holding the wrong game, that's why he didn't do that.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, that's why he did that. He was holding the
I knew there was something to go with that.
I miss the beard era of LJN Defender.
He doesn't like the beard.